ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। The theory of reincarnation. Yes. I will start reading.
Theory of reincarnation. What happens when a person dies? His gross body perishes in that form. The material of the body merges with earth. Science declares that something cannot pass into nothing. The law of indestructibility of matter, the law of conservation of energy, states it. The same law would apply to subtle body as well. The subtle body of the person comprises his thoughts, feelings, and desire, the resultant of his mental and intellectual forces, his inner energy comprising subtle matter. Applying the same law to the subtle body, you would realize that its energy cannot vanish into nothing at the time of death. In this world, there are innumerable deaths occurring every day and innumerable births. The mental energies of those persons cannot disappear or appear all of a sudden. That would be against the established law of science. Life is a series of experiences. The progression of life is determined by desires. Desires drive you from one experience to another. In philosophical terms, an experience is dead and another born at every moment. Thus, your desires drive you through a continuous procession of birth and death. This procession will continue in perpetuity until the desires are eradicated from your personality. Desires are the cause and the experiences of life are the effect. At the moment of death, a person is left with innumerable unfulfilled desires. He may vanish from your sight, but that does not mean that his desires are extinct. The desires have to be eradicated to prevent further manifestation. The cause has to be removed to erase the effect. When the desires are completely exhausted, the cycle of birth and death ends. That is the state of self-realization, God realization. Thus, numerous desires of different sorts remain unfulfilled when people die. At the time of their death, these desires have not been exhausted. It would be irrational to presume that all of them disappear into nothing. Now look at the world from another angle. Different types of people are born with distinct tendencies, inclinations, desires. Every human being enters the world with his pattern of thought, feeling, desire. And people are born with variety of desires. These variegated desires could not have emerged from nowhere. To accept that they have come out of nothing would again be as irrational as to presume that they disappeared suddenly. Such presumptions would be violating the code of science. Hence, the great thinkers of the past made a careful scrutiny of this world and found hordes and hordes of desires disappearing and appearing perennially. After a thorough investigation of this phenomena, they brilliantly connected the unaccounted gain of desires of the born to the unaccounted loss of desires of the dead, a sheer audit of the accounts of life. They applied the law of causation, which governs the entire universe at all times. took the desires of the dead as the cause and linked them to the desires of the born as the effect. This observation is in accordance with the law of indestructibility of matter, the law of causation, the law of karma. This ingenious correlation of cause and effect projects the theory of reincarnation. It is only scientific deduction from the available data, but cannot be proved experimentally, hence presented as a theory.
Yeah. Now, till now what he's saying is reincarnation is in relation to action. As long as the source of action is there, which is the desire, desire will manifest itself. At the time of death, you observe that a person dies unfulfilled. Even though we may not talk about the dead like that, we may talk all the good things about the person. And we also, when we write postcards here, how do we write? That fellow went to Shivaloka, that fellow went to Vaikunta. That's how we say, that's how we communicate the dead. No, we will not say this person is dead. We will say this person has reached Shivaloka, or this person has reached Vaikunta. These are all our hopes. It's a way of saying. But in reality, what happens? A person dying is unfulfilled. What happens to that unfulfillment? At birth, at birth, you see unfulfillment, and it continues right through. And then when the person dies, we cannot assume that it has come to a dead end. So reincarnation is a fact based on it's a scientific deduction. We saw that previous week. Previous week, I think we didn't meet previous week. The week before, we said we saw the difference between why it is called as theory is because it cannot be proved experimentally. But again, the entire cause and effect itself cannot be proved experimentally. It is only an inference. It is only an inference. For the entire, if you understand how the law of karma itself is based on inference, you will understand how this can be called, how this can come under the same law, and reincarnation is a fact. What does the law of karma say? Wherever there is an action, there is a result to that action. You perform an action, there is a result to that action. The result may fructify, the result may manifest immediately, the result may manifest later. If it manifests immediately, technically it is called drishta. If it manifests later, technically it is called adrishta. So action has a consequence, and the manifestation of the consequence can be immediate or it can be delayed. Actually, we cannot call it as delayed and all. It has different timelines. Different karmas has different timelines for manifestation. And most of the time what happens is it manifests much, much later. So it is called adrishta. Technically, it is called adrishta. This adrishta manifests in two forms. The adrishta manifests in two forms. In Puranic language, it is called punya and papa. In Vedantic language, we call it as pleasant and unpleasant. Unpleasant consequence and a pleasant consequence. This unpleasant consequence and pleasant consequence in a Puranic language, it is called Papa and Punya. Papa and Punya has a respective loka called Swarga and Naraka, heaven and hell. Now, all that means is what? There is a karma, there is an action, and then there is a consequence to that action. The consequence to the action, where it appears, where it will manifest, theory of reincarnation says, based on the law of karma, if you have done action here, it will manifest in this plane only. So anything that is done on this plane, the manifestation also will happen in this plane. There is no need to actually believe that there is a heaven or hell. Where you do something here, you experience something somewhere else. But though poetically, so why do we talk about that? Because we talk about Vedanta students at two levels. What you can call as the junior level and senior level. Advanced student and initial level. So when the person is in the initial stages of learning, you say something in a very differently, which the person can understand. And once the person advances, you give them, you are not saying anything different. It won't be any more story-wise. It would be more, it won't be based on any story. It will be something based on, who's on? Somebody is on. Mute panum. Maybe they're driving in this.
Muted, sir. It's muted.
So where there is an the at the junior level, at the initiate level, they will be spoken about as Papa, Punya, Swarga, Naraka, etc. Once you come to the advanced level, it will be told there is no need to bring in Swarga and Naraka. These are not geographical places and all. You come back again to experience it. That is called reincarnation. It's not that you go to a different, loka to experience it. You do a crime here, you will be punished in this country. You don't, it's not that you do a crime here and you will be punished in another country. No. You do a crime in India, you will not be punished in Bangladesh or Pakistan for that. But in the initial stages, it is difficult for a person to understand. So they talk about Swarga and Naraka. So you go there, stay there, etc. Reincarnation says there is no need to bring in external factors like that. Whatever the consequences are, you come back to experience that. What are the consequences of the desires? The consequences of the desires, actions, are different tendencies, different inclinations, different desires. What are the consequences? Different tendencies, different inclinations, different desires. Same house, same father, same mother, same environment, 3 children, they don't come with the same. They don't come with the same thought pattern. They don't come with the same desire. They come very differently. Therefore, it is irrational to assume that from where did it come? Something they have done in the past. Something they have done in the past to get it. So one side is you analyze birth, and another side is you analyze death. When you analyze the birth, and you analyze death, you connect this birth and death and come to a conclusion that there is reincarnation. To understand reincarnation, you don't analyze life. You analyze birth and you analyze death. Something cannot disappear into nothing, or something cannot come out of nothing. Both ways. Something cannot disappear into nothing, and something cannot come out of nothing. Therefore, they connected these two and they said there is reincarnation. All philosophical schools that rose from the Oriental region accepts reincarnation. Buddhism accepts reincarnation, Jainism accepts reincarnation, Vedanta accepts reincarnation. All religions that rose from the Oriental accepts reincarnation, because they all follow they may be different in some other areas, but when it comes to reincarnation, one thing that all of them agree together is in law of karma, that which goes along with law of karma is reincarnation. And this reincarnation says there is no such thing called death. What does reincarnation say? What is the conclusion you understand from reincarnation? As long as desires are there, there will be this birth and death. So in fact, there is no such thing called death. You come to fulfill some desire. In the bargain, you may fulfill a few and gather. You fulfill a few and gather more, thereby setting the platform for the next incarnation. And then you get into that, you fulfill a few, but then you develop a lot more, and thus the cycle keeps going. What is it said when it cannot be proved experimentally means you cannot make a particular connection. What is the particular connection? This particular person died here and this person is born here. That particular connection you cannot make. And because you cannot make this particular connection, people say it is a theory. Vedanta goes one step ahead and said, you have to thank the divine for this, because if you come to know that, what will happen? Come to know that what will happen? Suddenly some person will walk into my house and say something. Now I will walk into somebody else's house and say something. Life becomes utterly chaotic. Therefore, apohanam is functioning, and because apohanam is functioning, you will not be able to prove it experimentally. That doesn't make it a theory. Assuming that they are all advanced students, this is spoken, huh? Because I am saying something different from what is written in the book. He is saying it is theory. I am saying it is. I am saying it as law. I am not saying anything different from that. Assuming that we have done some enough years of study, we need to shift our understanding into the deeper level of saying that why we are not able to prove experimentally. Again, it is because of the nature's blessings. Why it is the nature's blessing? Then only you can go into the next embodiment and claim that embodiment as yours and get stuck there. Otherwise, you will be all over the place. Life becomes very chaotic. Therefore, apohanam functions and make sure that you should not make one-on-one connection. Therefore, there are a lot of things that people do to, they talk about this regression, they talk about going into their past lives. Yeah. And quite a few people went into those regressions and they came and told me also, I went to, said, why is it that everybody be only a Greek princess or a Roman prince? Why nobody, when they go through regression, will come back and say, I was a butcher, I was a beggar? Why everybody is only prince and the princess? I don't know if you have spoken to anybody who has done all this. I have spoken quite a few, because they come and tell me. You don't need to resort to those kind of practices to understand reincarnation. Because nature's blessing. What is nature's blessing? In Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, he call it as apohanam. Apohanam means you must forget a few things and move on. So what you forget? You forget the association with this gross body, you forget. What do you forget? Whatever is associated with this gross body, you forget. And what is associated with this gross body? The name, the fame, the family, the wife, the children, the brother, the sister, father, mother. All that is associated with this gross body will be forgotten. What continues? The desires continues. Even if we have understood the Vedantas, the three bodies, the causal body, subtle body, and the gross body, reincarnation is very clear. Even from that angle, reincarnation is very clear. Because upon death, when we say death, what is it that is die? What is it that is, when we say birth, what is born? The body is born. The gross body is born. Even if we have understood that there is this thing called subtle body, and it is a subtle body that occupies the gross body, if you have understood that, you will not have any problem in understanding reincarnation. You cannot say, I understand subtle body, sir, but reincarnation I don't believe in. It's not a matter of your belief or not. It's a matter whether it exists or not. It's not a question of individual belief. It's a question of whether is it a fact or not. Vedanta comes and says it is a fact. And there are evidences to support the fact. One area that will be missing is the individual connection, for which Vedanta gives the answer by saying you are not supposed to, thank God that individual connection you cannot make. That's why the movement in life is very smooth and effortless. The movement in life is very smooth and effortless because you forget. So it is called theory because it cannot be proved experiment. And what is meant by proving experimentally? One-on-one connection cannot be made. So to conclude, what all goes into understanding reincarnation? It is the Sukshma Sarira, the subtle body, the combination of the subtle body and causal body that enters into the gross body itself means it was existing. Then only we can say it is entering. No. The fact that is entering means it was existing. It is existing. It was existing. To manifest, it needs a body. It exists, but to experience it, it needs a conducive environment. So experiences happen only in the conducive environment. And by conducive environment, we mean the conducive gross body. By conducive environment, we don't mean the external environment. We mean the necessary gross body to experience. So the birth of the gross body is not the birth of you. The end of the gross body is not the end of you. That is why Vedanta starts with distinguishing between the gross body and the subtle body. And to understand that subtle body is different from gross body itself is a bit difficult, because it looks like it is part and parcel of. There is no such thing called subtle body and all. It is part. It is part and parcel of the gross body. What is the difference between the science and philosophy? Science centers everything on the physical body. Philosophy tried to go beyond the physical plane. What is the difference between science and philosophy? Science deals with the physical plane. Philosophy tries to deal with the plane. Is there anything beyond the physical? Are you able to see the difference? Philosophy means that which penetrates beyond the physical. Science is that which is not bothered about anything beyond the physical. That's why nowadays they don't use these terms. They used to use these kind of terms 50 years back, 100 years back, calling it as metaphysical, physical and metaphysical. Physical means that which is on the material plane. Material plane means that which can be experienced through the gross body. That which can be experienced through the gross body is called the material plane. Anything that existing beyond the gross body is the subtle body. So the very understanding that there is a subtle body itself gives you the clarity that there is reincarnation. Are you able to connect between the two? The very fact that it is there itself is a proof that there is reincarnation. Still it is called, still he calls it as, since it cannot be proved experimentally, hence presented as a theory. For all practical purposes, take it as, a law. A law functions according to the plan of nature called apohanam. Understand it like that, it becomes easy. What is reincarnation? A law that functions based on the principle of apohanam. Apohanam means loss of memory. In the 15th chapter, he says, I am the loss of memory, he says. Now, what is meant by loss of memory? Not the disease that we get. What is the disease we get? Memory loss we get. No, there is a name for the disease. What is it? Alzheimer's. Something, no, that there are 2-3 forms of the disease, no? Sometimes we also have selective memory loss, that is different. Sometimes we, that is selective memory loss, and sometimes we lose. Now, what is apohanam? It's not this loss of memory. When you move from one to the other, you forget everything. What comes with you? You forget the action, you forget the incident, but the consequences comes with you. That is reincarnation. Observation, accordance with the law of karma. You observe, and then it is not mere observation. Observation resulting in an inference. It is not just observation and coming to wrong conclusions. You observe and then come to the right conclusion. And why it cannot be proved experimentally, explanation is given for that also. Hence, presented as a theory. A sudden appearance and a sudden disappearance is against the law of cause and effect. That's all he said. A sudden appearance and a sudden disappearance. In the magic show, it happens, there will be a sudden appearance and then there will be a sudden disappearance. There is no sudden appearance. It is there already. You are so distracted that you will not be able to see it. Some of these magic shows, beautiful magic show. There are this magic shows happens all over the world, and in this country, the famous magic show is PC Sarkar Senior and PC Sarkar Junior. And I took Swati to see his magic show. It was a 3-hour show, long back. So before the show, since we know that place, before the show, I took her behind the stage, and there is an elephant standing there. I said, you see this elephant? The highlight of the show is the elephant will appear suddenly and the elephant will disappear suddenly. And it comes. There is a sudden appearance of the elephant on the stage. It does everything for 2 minutes. They don't switch off the light, nothing. Suddenly it appears and suddenly it disappears. We understand that such sudden appearances and sudden disappearances is not possible in life. A sudden appearance means you are not alert enough to see the sequence. A sudden disappearance means again you are not alert enough to see how it disappears. A person of alertness will understand that there is no sudden appearance, there is no sudden disappearance. Also, appearance has a cause. Disappearance also has a cause. It's not random. Are you able to follow now? The appearance also has a cause. The disappearance also has a cause. What is it that causes the appearance and what is it that causes the disappearance? That which causes the appearance is manifestation, birth. That which causes the disappearance is death. What causes birth and what causes death? Only one thing. Common cause for both. What is it? Desire. Subtle body. The movement of the subtle body from one body to the other. Because of this discovery of reincarnation, they were able to see life in a much deeper plane. Because of them discovered this reincarnation, Vedanta is able to see, is helping us to see life very deeply. What is the deep penetrative view of life? The deep penetrative view of life is what all you are doing now is what you were doing in the previous body. And what all you are doing in this body is what you are going to do in another body. And what all you are doing in this body? What is it that you do in this body? Only one thing you do. What? Try to preserve it as much as possible. That's all. What is the attempt? Try to preserve it as much as possible. And what all you can do to preserve it, you will preserve it, isn't it? Vedanta is not saying don't do that. Please do that. not saying don't do that. It's not saying stop preserving. It's not saying it. It's only saying all actions are intended towards what? All actions are intended towards preserving this sharira. And then the truth is what? How much ever you try to preserve this, you lose it. How much ever you try, you can preserve it. How much ever you can preserve it, you will lose it. And then what do you do? Try and take another one. Try and take another one. So what is it that causes birth? Is the same thing that causes death. What causes birth? The hope. What is the hope? At least in this sharira you can be happy, is the hope. Every newborn child you see, you should learn to see them as not newborns. Don't get carried away by the small body that you see, thinking that it is new. You should learn to see them as how you should see them. Very, very old. Very, very old. Doing the same thing again and again. Doing the same thing again and again. Having understood this, reincarnation will bring about a shift in understanding from preservation to looking beyond these bodies. Once you understand reincarnation, you will not excessively focus on preserving the body. And then your focus will shift to something beyond. When that focus shifts to something beyond, that is called mumukshatva. Without reincarnation, there cannot be mumukshatva. Without understanding reincarnation, it is impossible to have mumukshatva. How it is connected to mumukshatva? Because you understand that you are doing the same thing again and again. Hence the great thinkers of the past. Who are the great thinkers of the past? The sages. The sages of the past found hordes and hordes of desires appearing and hordes of desires disappearing perennially. So they connected the appearance and the disappearance and concluded there is reincarnation. So the shift, the reincarnation means the shift of thinking happens from the gross body to the subtle body. So to understand reincarnation, you have to understand subtle body. To understand reincarnation, you have to understand the law of cause and effect. To understand reincarnation, you have to understand the subtle body. To understand reincarnation, you have to understand apohanam, loss of memory. But one thing it cannot be done is the individual connection. This person dying here is that person being born there. That connection cannot be made. Only in one story, they tried to make that connection, but that person couldn't make that connection. Others were able to connect. Only in one case, they were able to make that. Even there, others were able to make that connection, but that person couldn't make that connection. You know that story, no? Where the guru cursed the boy to be born as a pig. They all went to all the brothers. They are called boys, no? Brothers. They went to murder the pig so that so that the person can liberate from the body of the pig and come back into human embodiment to serve. As soon as he was born as the pig, when they tried to beat him up, the pig said, remember that story? What did the pig say? I don't know what you are all talking about, a guru, about a shishya, me being cursed to be born as a pig. All that I don't know, I don't understand. I am the pig and just leave me alone. I am the pig and just leave me alone. It's a scientific deduction based on observation. Scientific deduction is what we call as inference. Scientific, and why we call it as inference is because the very law of karma itself is inferential based. How do we say that it is inferential based? If manifestation is immediate, if effect immediately follows the cause, you need not infer. If effect follows over a period of time, how do you understand that? Are you able to follow the difference? If the effect follows the cause immediately, there is no inference. You know it straight away. But if the effect follows the cause over a long period of time, that's why we gave the example of the different seeds manifesting as different trees. The different seeds manifest as different. One seed, the papaya seed, the tree comes up very fast. Mango, relatively, an oak tree take 500 years. Now, that where the time gap is more, your difficulty to correlate it is that much difficult. When we say difficulty to correlate means the one-on-one correlation. Next thing that we are going to study, the law of parallelogram forces, is going to say how you cannot make one-on-one connection. That's where the law of parallelogram forces is going to talk about that. We'll continue reading. We continue with another popular belief.
Another popular belief is that the newborn inherits the tendencies of its parents, that the law of heredity establishes it. The law of karma does not oppose the concept of heredity. It corrects the general misconception that the equation between parent and child emanates from the parent. It is not the parents that determine the nature of the child. It is vice versa. The child determines the parents. The law of karma explains how the resultant effect of one's mental and intellectual energies would find the right body, parents, and environment, with no extraneous power deciding this choice. If desires are the cause for the continuity of life, how can one take a birth in an environment or circumstance not to his liking? Take a form of life different from his desires. Why would a person be born poor when he desires to be rich? Why would anyone desire to be born physically handicapped? If desires decide your life's pattern, how is it not so in actual fact? The world that you experience does not seem to always relate to your desires. This apparent paradox arises when you do not correlate cause and effect properly, fully. Your desires no doubt decide the course of your life, but then it is not a particular desire that decides it. It is the compound of all your desires. The total effect of your desires decide the course. It is called the resultant desire. The parallelogram law of forces in physics explains this phenomena as illustrated below in figure 1 and 2. Consider an object in position O, free to move in all directions. Two equal forces act upon it, one force horizontally along OA, the other vertically along OB. The object will then move neither in the direction of OA nor OB, but diagonally along OR. There is no force operating along OR, yet the object moves in that direction. The force that drives the object along OR is called the resultant. The resultant force is the effect of both the forces. Let more forces OF1, OF2, OF3, etc. be applied on the object. Several forces of varying strength and direction. Then the resultant would be the total effect of all those forces. Let it be OR. Then the object will move along OR. Here again, the resultant force may not be in the direction of any one of the forces acting upon it. Yet, the object will move in that direction. The same phenomena takes place in your life. Your life is ordered by your resultant desire, the total effect of all your desires. Innumerable desires operate in you. Each has its own strength and direction. But you will move in the direction of your resultant desire, which may not be in the direction of any one of your desire. That should explain why your life may not always be in line with any particular desire. That is the law of life, which applies to every individual throughout the world. Besides the above analysis and conclusion, it would be interesting to observe what exactly happens to a person at death, to his gross, subtle, and causal bodies, and Atman, the self within. It is obvious that the physical body has not gone. It lies there. And the Atman, of course, cannot go anywhere since it's all-pervading. It exists everywhere. Being so, it should exist in the dead body as well. Besides, movement of an object is possible from a place where it exists to a place where it is not. As the Atman pervades everywhere, there is no place where it does not exist. Hence, it cannot move. Thus, the physical body of the person and the Atman are very much there at the time of death. It is only the other two components of the individual, with the causal and the subtle bodies, that move out. Therefore, the transference of the causal and subtle bodies from one gross body to another is designated as death of the former body and the birth of the latter. The concept of birth and death becomes clearer with the example of the sun and its reflections. The sun's rays are all-pervading. Whenever there is a reflecting medium, there will be reflection of the sun. Hold a mirror in the frame in broad sunlight. You will find a reflected sun in it. Remove the mirror from the frame and fix it in another frame. Instantly, the reflected sun in the first frame vanishes and appears in the second. The image is dead in the first and born in the second. The reflected sun moves from the one to the other, brought about by the transference of the mirror. Equate the example to the phenomena of birth and death. The sun above represents the Atman. Its all-pervading rays would then be the pure consciousness everywhere. The frame would be the gross body. The glass and the reflecting material composing the mirror would represent the subtle and the causal bodies respectively. The Atman functioning through these bodies project the individual. Thus, the transference of the subtle and causal bodies from one gross body to another determines the death and the birth of the individual. Until the vasanas, desires get completely exhausted, the causal and subtle bodies eliminated, the cycle of birth and death will continue for him. The moment the vasanas, desires, are eradicated, the individuality is dissolved. His cycle of birth and death ends. He attains spiritual enlightenment. Without the cognition of the law of causation and a clear understanding of the consequent theory of reincarnation, you could run into trouble. Here is a true story. A lady in her advanced age developed cataract in her eyes. She was losing her eyesight. At that time of her life, a misfortune befell her. Her only daughter expired. She was terribly upset. She lost all her interest in the world. She would not meet anybody or go anywhere. Meanwhile, her cataract ripened. She was practically blind. Her family and well-wishers appealed to her to undergo surgery. She refused to do so. She chose to deny herself eyesight for the rest of her life. She would say, "Am I to restore my eyesight to gaze at emptiness? The beauty of my home is gone. I have nothing more to see." They were all confused and did not know how to persuade her to go through the surgery. They approached a Swami, a sage, for help. The Swami met her personally. The wise man explained to her how the resultant desire works. "Remember, you are entertaining a powerful desire not to see the world." The sage said to her, "You are old. Death may overtake you any day. If you continue to deny yourself eyesight, there is a fair chance you will be born blind." The lady sprang to her feet and went through the surgery the same day. The significant part of the episode is that a person could be born blind even though he does not desire it. The resultant of all his desires becomes the cause leading to that effect. Therefore, it would be in your interest to scrutinize at all times the type of desires you entertain. Avoid negative thoughts and desires. Try to turn them positive. If you practice that, you would not be a victim of self-inflicted complications in life. Your life would then become more meaningful, purposeful. Imagine a person who is brutal, bloodthirsty. He develops a passion for destroying, killing. He becomes a dangerous killer. The society does not allow him to manifest his destructive nature. The law prohibits it as well. His desires are frustrated. The frustrated desires must find their way out. This is not possible in his present embodiment environment. Hence, his resultant desire will forge itself into an appropriate embodiment for fulfillment. Thus, his own desire could possibly cast his next incarnation as a tiger or a lion, wherein the embodiment and environment becomes befitting, conducive for fulfilling those desires. No doubt, a human being cannot easily fall into an animal incarnation. A human possesses fine emotions and subtle thoughts which animals lack. Those thoughts and desires in him would strongly influence the resultant desire towards human incarnation. Notwithstanding it at all, he could still force himself into lower species by persistently indulging in such destructive passion. There is also a powerful conjecture in spiritual lobbies that a person may not be reincarnated immediately after death, that his causal, subtle body may take a while before it finds the appropriate gross body and environment. The interim after death and before the next birth would resemble sleep or dream. This observation again has certain validity since it is seen happening to other living species. The seed fallen from the tree is not always subject to immediate germination. An egg laid by a bird takes time to hatch. So too, a human may experience a period of sleep or dream before his next incarnation. People the world over are unaware of the relentless law of karma. They entertain all sorts of desires indiscriminately, plunge into the action in pursuit of their passions, thoughtless of the dire consequences, and end up with calamities in their life. Unaware of their responsibility for misfortune, they bewail the stars and planets, blame everything, everybody in the world except themselves. In desperation, some go to astrologers, palmists, and spiritualists for help. Others pray to God to mend their fortune, not realizing they have brought the misery upon themselves and that they have to redeem themselves.
The resultant desire. Resultant means the combined effect, not a specific, it's a combined effect. The various kinds of karmas. What are the various kinds of karmas? We have seen that, the three types. The thought, the word, the deed. Manasam karma, vachikam karma, and kayakam karma. So actions done through these three. The thought, the word, and the deed with different intensities at different periods of time with different intensities, all will have a collective effect. That collective effect is called the resultant, and that resultant decides the next incarnation. There are various types of forces. And what goes into the forces? Your own thoughts, your own words, and your own actions. So your thoughts, your words, your actions combined gives a direction. And the direction may not be of a specific like. Nobody would like that specific direction. But the resultant drives them in that direction. And they cannot shift the responsibility of the resultant to somebody else's, because they are the ones who created the resultant. Who's the creator of the resultant? You, the individual, is the creator of the resultant. And what are the forces that goes into deciding the resultant force? He says OA, OB, OC, OD, OR, etc., etc., etc. And then all put together is called OR. And the OR can be in any direction. And you may not have a specific desire in OR. You may not have a specific desire to be born to this parent, to this father, to this mother, as the second son, as the first son, or the third son. You may not have that particular desire. Are you able to follow? Resultant. But the resultant drives you there. And you need not blame your parents for. You need not blame the parents. You need not blame the environment, because according to law of karma, you chose that parent. Since you chose that parent, you have no reason to complain about them. But sir, why will I choose such a father? Why will I choose such a mother? Why will I choose such an environment? You chose not individually, not directly, but you are born there as a result of the resultant force, the combined force. How to be aware of that? You can never know the resultant force. But one thing you can do. This is how law of karma saves you. But one thing you can do. What is it that you can do? By making sure that you entertain noble thoughts, noble words, noble deeds. When you take care of all these three, the resultant would be better. That is the assurance of law of karma. You make an effort to take care of your thoughts. You make an effort to take care of your words. You make an effort to take care of your actions. If all these three are positive in nature, the resultant also will be positive in nature. If it is mixed, the resultant will be mixed. If it is negative, predominantly, it will be negative. Are you able to follow? What is mixed in nature means? That's why we gave this example, no? What is mixed in nature means? That jiva will be born as a dog in America, isn't it? Because they are taken so much of care there, I heard, isn't it? Or you will be born as a dog in a rich person's family, where everybody will be outside and the dog will be inside. So a combined mixed result will give you the mixed environment. A positive resultant will give you the positive environment. The mixed resultant will give you the mixed environment. The negative result will give you the negative effect will give a very bad environment. The parent, the environment, everything that you are born in is because of your own asking. Therefore, based on this fact, Ramatirtha says, you are your parent's parent, he says. Based on this, he says, you are your parent's parent. You are your parent's parent means they didn't choose you, you choose them. They didn't choose you, you choose them. Only mistake that you should not make is you chose them, in the sense it's not that you know everything and then you chose. It's not in that sense you chose. Then how did you choose? The resultant force of your combined thought, words and deed drove you to that environment. So in effect, it is your own choice. That's what he says. People are unaware of the relentless law of karma. They entertain all sorts of thoughts indiscriminately. And they believe that they are free from those thoughts. They believe that they are free from those thoughts. Unaware of the consequences. What is lack of awareness of the consequences? There is a resultant force and you will never know the direction of the resultant force, and it can take you into any direction. Therefore, understanding this, what you would do, you will be very responsible in entertaining thoughts. You will be very responsible in entertaining the words, very responsible in entertaining actions. So, the conclusion, understanding law of karma makes you a responsible person. An irresponsible person means that person didn't understand there is this law called the law of karma. This is how the resultant desire explains it. Self-inflicted complications because of you not bothered about the direction. That's why in Vedanta, they speak about direction a lot. Entertain positive thoughts as much as possible. Entertain, speak satyam vada. It says speak as much as possible. Speak the right word. Satyam vada, dharmam chara, do dharma, do in actions, be as much as possible, be charitable. Be charitable in your actions, be kind in your words, be positive in your thoughts, because these three is what is determining your direction. Those who do not understand this law, they believe what? They can entertain any thought and they can escape the consequence. They can do whatever they want and they can escape the consequence. In fact, they don't realize that there is a thing called a consequence. It's not about them believing that they can escape. They don't even realize that there is a thing called consequence. And reincarnation establishes very clearly what? Whatsoever you do, the resultant force will make you to experience. The resultant force will make you to experience the consequences of your thoughts, words, and action. Therefore, what do? Be responsible. This is law of karma. This is the whole chapter, the law of. We'll try to quickly summarize the entire chapter in the next class. We'll do the summary of the entire law of karma in the next class, and then we move on to another lesson, what is called as theory of perception. And then we will be studying Maya, and then we'll go on to study the illusions, Maya. So, for today, what do we understand? The resultant is your own creation. The resultant is your own creation. There is no external force determining, or there is no external force that determines your resultant. My force plus, is there any additional force also, sir? Vedanta comes and says, no, there is no additional force at all that determines your direction. It is only your own. It's only your own thoughts, your own words, and your own actions. Invariably, most of the time, what happens? You are not aware of your thoughts. You are not aware of what you are thinking. You are not aware of the words. Actions, you may be aware because you see it immediately. Actions you will be aware. But then the thoughts and words, you are not aware. And all the three determines the result. Therefore, the law of karma makes it very clear. What does it make clear? Whatsoever you are experiencing in life, whether now or later, is a resultant. Whatsoever experiencing is the effect of your resultant, and resultant is your own making. Therefore, be careful. Be responsible. This is law of karma. With this, we conclude for today, and we try to summarize the law of karma in the entire chapter in the next session, and then we move on. Is it okay? Do we have anything? Nothing, no?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. We conclude for today and we continue next week.